Welcome back.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Steve, and this is Streaming Things, coming at you live from space. Actually, it's not live at all, it's pre-recorded. But we are here to talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds on Paramount Plus. Phil, how the hell are you?
Good, man. You?
I'm great. I'm
Awesome.
great. Listeners, you may know that we are a little late this week.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, so the reason is Steve and I sat down to record the episode on Thursday. And literally right as I sat down, I put my phone up on the stand to look at my notes, and I noticed I was getting a call from my wife. So I quickly took it. And we had a death in the family. So I had to run, go be with her. So that's why it's late. Sorry. I know it's not like anyone's fault. It just death occurs. But but don't think this is going to be like the way it is. Unless every week somebody else dies. I don't know.
I mean, the way the orcas are working around the world, that could be a thing.
True.
But yeah, man. We apologize for being late, but you guys understand. Like, this is just a podcast. Life happens. Family and humans are way more important than what we do on a podcast. We appreciate you guys being patient with us, but we're here to talk about sci-fi, man. Yeah, some strange new worlds. This episode in particular, we're talking about today. Ad Astra per Aspera is quite a good one, I think, in my opinion. And if this is the first time you've ever listened to the show, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and give a scene-by-scene recap of the episode that we're about to talk about. We're going to get into our two final segments. First one, Acting Captain. We're going to name who was our favorite actor, who gave the best performance of the episode. And then we're going to talk about our favorite moment of the episode. We had a listener write in and suggest that we call this segment Captain's Log. So our Captain's Log, stardate 20230624.
Point what?
Point 11.
Perfect.
But yeah, they suggested Captain's Log. Maybe we do that.
Okay, cool.
And then after that, I'm going to open up the comms for some listener questions. We got a couple questions sent in to us via email and via the Patreon Discord, which you can be a part of if you go to patreon.com/streamingthings, where you can join us at a variety of tiers. And you can also email us at streamingthingspod@gmail.com if you would like to interact with the show as well. Phil.
Yes.
Captain on deck. How's it going, my man?
Good.
I know we kind of haven't been doing overall thoughts, but overall, what like going into this episode, how are you feeling from last week? What were you excited about getting into this episode? Paint me a picture.
So it's wild that they started season 2, episode 1 off with very little Pike and not following up on the season cliffhanger of season 1. Because at the end of season 1, Una was taken away by Captain Battelle and her cronies for essentially lying to Starfleet about being an Illyrian. And they made a bold choice to not address that in season 1 or season 2, episode 1.
Yeah, they're like that big whole cliffhanger we did last week. Forget about it.
Just wait a minute.
Just forget about it.
Hold off on that. Pike wasn't really even in the first episode of season 2.
It was like in a scene.
Yeah. Like in the beginning, like the first 5 minutes, and then poof, gone. But that's okay, because we liked episode 1. There was like one thing we didn't care as much about, but overall we liked it. So I was really interested to see how they address the Una trial in season 2, episode 2. And this was the episode. So I was really pumped about this one. It had major like Measure of a Man vibes from I think it was season 2 of TNG. So like the only good episode that season. So I was like courtroom drama. I'm always there for it. Not a violent scene in the whole episode. So really different approach to this one versus the first episode. So I was glad that they are essentially showing off the modes that they can hit with this show. Like, it's not all lasers and explosions and Popeye spinach vials that turn them into super ninjas. It was a more measured courtroom drama type episode, which was really fun.
Do you find yourself? Do you enjoy like a lot of courtroom dramas in general? Like, do you watch any of those?
I mean, like we've all watched
your Laws and Orders.
Yeah, like we've all watched Law
your
and
SVUs.
Order. Yeah, one of the better movies I've seen is 12 Angry Men. Like that's a great courtroom movie. Or the jury.
It's a jury. Yeah.
So
that's a really good movie.
When they're done well, they're really interesting and riveting. When they're kind of meh and the writing's not great, like, yeah, they're boring. But
yeah, I feel like a courtroom drama is a perfect sort of medium for a writer to really flex if they're good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could because it's right. You could like do, big speeches, character-driven dialogue with drama in it. So if you're not good at writing, it's not going to be a good courtroom drama. It's just not.
Right. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Well, this episode in particular was written by Akita Goldsman and Alex Kurtzman and directed by Valerie Weiss.
Yeah.
Weiss?
First-time Trek director, too.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, they did a great job.
Yeah.
An amazing job. Mm-hmm. But how about we dip right into the scene-by-scene recap?
Sure.
Okay, so the episode opens up. It's Una as a little girl. She's looking out the window. She's really worried. Her parents are arguing in the background. Mm-hmm. But she's told, hey, Una, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Don't you worry your little Illyrian head.
Right.
You're going to be all right.
Right. Her mom wants to go to the hospital because it's bad enough that she's like, we need help. And Una's dad's like, we absolutely cannot do that. She's not going. She'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they kind of talk, I think they touch back on this later, but this is, I assume, when she broke her leg?
Yeah, she had a wound on her leg that you see for like a second. Mm-hmm. So, and it's not actually immediately clear that it's Una until you flash forward into the next scene, and then it's obvious. But at that moment, you're like, I mean, we all assume it's her, but there's not like, she doesn't have like a name tag on her shirt that says Una. So it's not immediately obvious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a good little reveal. They transition to adult Una now.
Yeah.
She's talking to
Captain Battelle.
And Battelle's saying like, hey, I'm trying to work with you here. If you plead guilty, we will accept a dishonorable discharge. You won't be exiled from Starfleet.
No prison time.
No prison time. We will be willing to seal the records and just look the other way.
Right.
And this is kind of an interesting sort of scene because we all think of Starfleet. Starfleet has this sort of, there's big ideals to it. That they're the quote unquote good guys. They're supposed to be like very progressive and helpful. It's interesting that they've given Una a defendant or an attorney, I assume, who works for Starfleet. So she's like, this is kind of dumb. Like Starfleet's putting me on trial and they've got their own person defending me. How can they truly be on my side and defend me and defend my story if they technically work for you? And this is when we get the first sort of bit of courtroom drama. And we know this because Una at one point goes, sidebar. Sidebar.
Yeah.
I could have used for some more courtroom thing, like objection, overruled.
We get a little bit more of that later on, like during the actual trial. But during the plea deal that she's presented with in a very oddly lit, scary room.
Yeah.
She's not taking that deal.
Is this room in section 31? 31?
Yeah. Right.
That's where they have all their...
I mean, maybe. Yeah. The cell we see her in later on has an amazing view of the Golden Gate Bridge, though.
It does, yeah. Yeah.
It's like, damn, I mean, people pay for that view now. Like
that's some prime real estate. In the future, we treat our criminals very well.
Yeah. Right.
I do love how in Star Trek, 9 out of 10 times, if you go to Earth, you're within spitting distance of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Every time. Every single time. So, sidebar. I just went to San Francisco, and I went to the opposite side of the bridge, and I definitely looked at the side that Starfleet Academy will be on and like winked to myself like, yeah.
One day.
It's going right there.
I want that for you.
Yeah. Not going to be around to see it.
I can't wait till like we're both 90 and because I'll still be walking. Yeah. I'll wheel you like over there like, there it is, buddy. They did it. Where's Captain Archer?
Yeah. Technically, first warp flight is like 2063, I think it is. So we'll see that.
It's coming up.
Yeah. But
we will have to World War III.
Yeah, we'll have to survive World War III and the eugenics wars.
Yeah.
Between now and then. So. Fingers crossed.
Hey, you know, the way the world is really going, we're not too far off from this.
Not really. Seriously.
So Captain Pike, he's going to the Volterran Nebula to find some legal help. And I really, really actually enjoyed this because it's not so like in Star Trek, it's like, hey, let's go to a planet. And then they just sort of don't need to take any precautions. I'm on this planet. So I like the fact that he was on a planet that is actually not healthy for humans. Like he's got to wear a mask. He can't survive in the atmosphere. It's not suitable for human life. But the Illyrians use it because they have used their genetic modifications where the atmosphere doesn't bother them.
Yeah.
And I think that was really, really cool. It kind of shows you the difference between these two types of people and why they're quote unquote different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Pike has his collar popped in a extremely aggressive way, and I really appreciated that.
You like an aggressive pop?
I like an aggressive pop on Pike.
Pop on Pike?
Pop on Pike?
Yeah.
So props to Anson Mount for just rocking that popped collar.
We're gonna say this a lot on the show, but Anson Mount can get it. All right, he can wear probably anything, and I would still be like, yeah. Dude can get it. Captain, my captain.
Yeah.
I watched Elysium Kingdom the other day just for funsies. Mm-hmm. I love that. Honestly to God, I do love that episode so much.
It's a divisive one, but yeah.
It is a divisive one. I love it. And one of the reasons why I love it is how committed Anson Mount is to that role. Like he gets to play a coward and all that, and he loves it. And he looks good in that little, I don't know what you call that type of Renaissance era outfit that he's wearing, but he can get it.
Yeah.
My dude can get it.
He's good.
Even when he's got like half his face obscured by a respirator.
Yeah. Perfectly coiffed hair though.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. But he meets with Neera. Now, Neera is apparently a lawyer of some renown, but also has some sort of past with Una.
Yeah.
So he's going to Neera to try to convince her to help Una out because she's got this great legal expertise. But there is some sort of history between them where she doesn't necessarily want to help her out at first. He
mentioned in episode 1 of season 2 that he was leaving to physically travel to her office because she won't take his calls. So that's why he's there. That's why he wasn't in the first episode at all, because he was in transit to see Neera K'Tul. Mm-hmm. And now he's arrived. So now he's in her office and she's not happy to see him at all.
He tries to do this thing where his oxygen, she's trying to wait him out and his oxygen rebreather's like out of oxygen and he's like, I can wait, but he's like dying.
Yeah. And the receptionist has no choice but to essentially like give him what he wants because otherwise he's going to die.
Yeah.
So
you're going to have a dead Starfleet captain in your lobby if you don't do what he wants.
Yeah.
And let me just say this right off the top. Mm-hmm. Neera K'Tul, what a queen.
Yeah. She rules.
I love this character so much because it's rare you can watch a television show, especially a show like even Star Trek, where it's like, Star Trek talks about like some big societal issues and tries to hold a mirror to society and make us better. Mm-hmm. But you never get a character that speaks truth to power this hard. Like, this woman is just, she's out to get it. And I love it because
perfect casting.
Yeah, because there's a point where she's like, "Hey, I don't want to help Starfleet. Starfleet sucks. They hate our people. They're kind of racist and bigoted towards us. It's awful." And he has some sort of line about old fears can be wrong, and she's like, "Oh, congrats, you've discovered empathy. Yeah, good job."
Yeah, like, she gives it right back to him.
I love her.
Yeah, she rules. And we learned that Neera is Una's childhood friend, but we don't know exactly what went down between them. Like she hints at some tension between her and Una, but we're not sure yet, like what the nature of that is.
Yeah. And she she kind of reveals about herself that even though she's kind of playing this sort of, she's got this bravado, like, I'm not helping you out. I'm not helping her out. Starfleet sucks.
Yeah.
She knows everything about the case, even though the case is technically sealed.
Yeah.
So she has an interest there.
Yeah.
But her, I don't know, like her stubbornness is getting in the way of her actually participating in the case as of yet.
Right.
But Pike kind of flips it around on her. Is like, hey, yeah, this case might not be the most helpful towards Illyrians, but it'll be the most public case. And if you work this out and you help her, that's going to put a lot more spotlight on the cases that you do care about and you are kind of struggling with right now.
And as he pointed out, her track record with taking Starfleet to court is not great at this point. Lots of cases thrown out. So she needs a win. I think she said she's a civic law attorney. So
that makes sense.
She needs she needs a win. She's extremely good at her job, but like, I guess as her track record. Her track record.
Yeah.
As her track record goes with Starfleet, not great yet. So.
Yeah, and it's mostly not because of her. It's just because Starfleet's just dismissing her court cases, so she can't even get the opportunity to get the wins.
Right.
It's a fixed system against her and all other Illyrians. But Una is sitting in her jail cell. She's looking at her badge. Great view. How much do you think she pays for that cell a month?
Yeah. I mean, that view today is...
Well, I mean, I guess there's no money in Star Trek. So
no, there's none. Yeah.
There's no value in that.
They are living in a post-scarcity society, so money has no point except to Ferengi.
Human. I want that cell, human.
Yeah. Pippin is right on me right now. It's very cute.
What is he licking you?
Yeah.
Pippin the dog?
Are
you guys talking about Star Trek? I have some thoughts on it. My favorite character is the one with the pointy ears, because I also have pointy ears. Oh, here he comes.
For the YouTube listener, or the YouTube viewers, hi, buddy. Oh my goodness.
He loves his Uncle Phil.
Yeah, go on YouTube and check this out because he's very cute.
He loves his Uncle Phil.
Okay, sorry.
But yeah, Una's in her jail cell. She's looking at her badge. Neera shows up. She's taking the case. She tells Una, hey, tell me the story of your story. Who turns you in? Starfleet is trying to sweep this under the rug because they don't want the public to know that they allowed and kind of were tricked by Una into letting an Illyrian into their midst. But she wants this case to go public. And she's like, deny that plea deal. We're taking this to court. We're doing it for the Illyrians.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think that's a good sound strategy? Should she have taken that plea deal, Phil?
Knowing how it ends up? No, of course not. At that moment, though, it's a tempting offer for anybody who's not Una because it is a hard case to win. So with stated law, and Starfleet feels pretty rigid when it comes to that type of law. As the episode goes on, though, like things turn around. So.
And everyone knows that we brought you onto this show because you have an extensive legal background in Star Trek law, right? Where did you get your law degree at in Star Trek? Star Trek law degree.
Oh, I hate to admit this, but I have not passed the Starfleet bar yet. So I am not an actual Starfleet attorney yet.
There's the door.
You were waiting for that. But Una's not about being erased. She's like, no, I'm not going to take a dishonorable discharge. That's just not who I am.
She's a hero.
She's like, I've done more for Starfleet than most. This was my dream. Like, I'm not just gonna roll over on this thing.
Yeah, how many
She's
people
gonna fight it?
How many people can say she did every single list on the Enterprise crew fuck around sheet or whatever that episode was?
Oh, what was that called on Lower Decks? It was like
it was her and La'an did the whole thing where it's like walk on the ship.
That one. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. I thought you meant the Lower Decks joke.
No.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, we're talking about Strange New Worlds, Phil.
Sorry.
Completely different show.
I got my treks mixed up.
But Captain, I don't know why I can't say Batel.
Yeah.
But Captain Battelle confronts Captain Pike because she's kind of mad. She's gotten the word that Una's not taking the plea deal. And despite like all sort of efforts, Battelle thinks she's doing what's best for Una. Like she doesn't hate Una. She thinks Una's a hero. She's trying to work within the law to be like, hey, she's confronting Pike. Like, why is she doing this? I literally did everything I could to make sure she like can live a free and normal life. She just isn't going to be a part of Starfleet anymore. If she takes this to court, the judge advocate general, who is Pasak, he's a real dick. He's a real stick in the mud. He's a real patak, if you know what I mean. And she's really concerned that if she takes this to court, she's going to get the whole book thrown at her. And you know about the book as the Starfleet legal expert here.
Yeah, it's about 4 inches thick.
Yeah, I mean, just their dress code in general that she had was...
It's an actual book, too. It's not a pad. It's like a physical book.
Someone wrote that shit by hand.
Just love it whenever you see like a relic from our time in the future like that. Like I know books have existed for hundreds of years, but it's
weird
funny to see
it like Star Trek.
Yeah.
Because they always have the little pads on them and stuff.
Right.
So when they're like, lick my finger and move the pages.
Right. You know what my favorite part about this scene is? Did you watch this with captions on?
I think I did, but I was ignoring the captions.
Okay. Pike gets mad at one point and cuts through a carrot, and the captions. No. He tosses it, and the caption says, "Carrot clatters," and I love that.
Carrot clatters.
I love that. Just in case,
sometimes captions are heroes.
Just in case you weren't paying attention, he threw that, and here's text-based evidence of that.
If you ever wondered what sound a carrot makes when it's thrown across the floor, it's a clatter.
Exactly. Right.
Just like the reindeer on the top of your roof, it's a clatter.
Right.
And of course, I do love this scene too because I just love this thing where Captain Pike's always cooking up food.
Yeah.
He's what a dude. He can get it.
I know.
Am I right?
He's the best. Yeah.
He can get it.
And then the next scene, Battelle and Pasalk essentially up the charges since Una's rejected their deal. They're like, fine, we're going to throw the whole book at you and we're going to give you every single charge that we can possibly give you.
You violated code 614, 617. We're giving you 2 counts of sedition on top of that.
There you
go.
know
what that's going to get you? Dismissal, 20 years in a penal colony.
Yeah.
I don't want to go anywhere that begins with the word penal. All right. Does not sound good.
Was that sidebar in the Voyager first episode of the first season, Janeway goes to
a penal colony for...
Yeah. Was he in a penal colony?
I'm pretty sure. Like, listener, write in if I'm wrong, but I'm like 99% sure he was at a penal colony. Yeah. That's how she got... you're talking about Paris, right?
Yeah. Tom. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, Tom Paris.
Yeah.
Remember when they became salamanders? What a good episode that was.
It was a great episode.
We should just review that episode. I
mean, if the listeners on Patreon want us to watch Threshold, we can.
So, sidebar. Phil and I were watching Voyager kind of together, but I had gotten a little ahead of you at this point, and so I watched Threshold before you did, and I was kind of like live texting you like, what the fuck is this episode? What is happening?
Yeah. Yep.
This ending is insane.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love that it's made.
Yeah.
So they want to make an example out of Una. That's why they're throwing the book at her. How dare you be an Illyrian and trick us?
Yeah.
Don't trick us. It's kind of like when you're like in the garage late at night and like a moth like flutters by you and it scares the shit out of you. You're like, oh, that thing has to die. Fuck that thing.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. But they want to make an example out of her, but they kind of have announced that they're going to have these like star witnesses in her trial, and Admiral Robert April is going to be amongst them. And at first they're like, oh, that's kind of great. Admiral April loves me. He was the one that kind of what was it called? Sponsored me in the Starfleet?
Yeah, he essentially vouched for her and put his career on the line for her.
Yeah, and Una wants to take the stand, but they're like, hey, you're not going to take the stand because that's going to give them an opportunity to tear you down and like discredit you. Neera wants to do it her way this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Her way or the highway.
Right.
So Neera is given Una's quarters on the Enterprise to have sort of as like
it's a prepper case,
a home base. Yeah, but she needs some records, and luckily Lon is there to help her.
Yeah.
Lon is kind of. She says something like, "Hey, have you figured out who the person is that turned Una in? I think I know who it is, but I need hard evidence."
Yeah.
Because up to this point, remind me, because it's been a minute since I've watched the season finale of season 1.
Yeah.
Remind me again, was there like a big question, like who turned her in? Or was she just turned in?
I don't think that was like expressly like a big part. It was just at the end of that episode, Batel shows up. She's like, I need Chris and Una in the transporter room. Mm-hmm. And then she takes Una away and announces the charges of essentially lying to Starfleet to gain entry into their ranks. Mm-hmm. And then they beam off. So
okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But when this scene popped up, I had a moment of like, am I not remembering a conspiracy that?
I don't really think there was a big emphasis on who turned her in. I think that, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't. That part doesn't stick out to me when I think back on the finale of season 1.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. I'm glad it's not just me.
Yeah.
So Batel sits with Pike. He wants to fight for his friend. Una pointed out a mistake that he made because he went to her graduating class at Starfleet and like made this big whole story of some heroic piloting he did. And after the speech, Una came up to Pike and was like, "Hey man, actually, if you did this, you could have done this and not have sucked so hard. Am I right?" And he's like, "That's why I liked her, because every captain needs a first officer who's willing to tell them when you're wrong." And I think that's good advice, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is why he wants to take the stand in defense of his friend. But Batel, who again is doing her job but also trying to look out for them, is like, okay, I'm gonna tell you why that's a terrible idea. Because as soon as you get on the stand, the first question they're gonna ask you is, how long were you aware you were harboring an Illyrian on the stand?
Yeah. And
as you know, you're under oath.
Yeah.
And they'll know if you're lying.
Right.
Your hand's on that light.
Yeah.
It'll know.
Come back to that part. So the convo takes a hard turn on Pike, and he sort of realizes like, okay, yeah, maybe taking the stand is not the best choice for me. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. We cut to Ortegas is hanging out with Mbenga, and there's this really funny scene where they're kind of like they're at the dinner room. What do you call that? The lounge.
It's the equivalent of 10 forward for the Enterprise.
Yeah. So they're at 11 forward. Or 9 forward.
Sure.
Maybe 9 forward?
Sure.
And Ortegas is doing this funny thing where they're both watching Spock have dinner with Pasak. And Ortega's like, I'm Spock. I'm doing this. I'm Mbenga. That's illogical. Like,
yeah.
Have you ever done something like that?
We've done that to people.
We have done that. We've done that to many people.
Ortegas and Mbenga are basically watching these two stare intently at each other across the table, but
they're
like
sitting straight
farther away. So they're essentially just making fun of these two just stoic, emotionless Vulcans.
But Mbenga's like, oh, those guys hate each other. Can't you tell? Look at their body language. And Ortega's like, what are you talking about? They're just standing there or sitting there.
Yeah.
And then this is honestly one of the funniest moments, definitely of this episode, but I outright cackled when Spock gets up, he walks over and he's like, I regret that you had to witness that outburst.
Yeah.
Pasak brings out the worst in me.
He mentions that Pasak is his father's former colleague too.
Yeah.
So a Sarek reference there for any TNG fans.
Gotta love a good Sarek reference.
Yeah. So
have we not seen Sarek since like Discovery?
Right.
Wow, what a bummer.
Yeah.
I like that character.
Yeah.
He's got to come back at some point.
Maybe.
I would love to see Sarek and Spock interact again on this show.
I think we've had enough of Spock's dad throughout the last 30 to 40 years.
It doesn't have to be like a big thing. You just show up and be like, Spock, and then they do the head nod, they do the live long and prosper, and then they dap up.
Yeah. That's fine. Sure. I mean, I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
But
I just like a good Easter egg.
Yeah.
La'an and Uhura.
We cut back to the bridge at this point.
Yeah.
And La'an is giving Uhura a illegal order, and Uhura recognizes it as one that she should not follow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, essentially she wants all the communications that mention Una, even the personal logs. And apparently in Starfleet, personal logs are like sealed and you can't have access to them unless like under very specific circumstances, which this does not apply to.
Right. The red tape to get those logs is a long process. Actually, Neera mentions that it takes like 6 months, I think, later on in the episode to acquire those in a legal way. So obviously, La'an ordering Uhura to give her all of those logs is a big no-no.
Yeah.
And Uhura's like, you are my friend. I respect you, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, well, she's basically like, I'm not going to do that. Also, I'm not going to do that because I don't want that to happen to you. Like, you will get in trouble. And also there's some legal order that I can't remember if Uhura brings up or if it's brought up later in the episode, but they're like, if any evidence that's obtained illegally is inadmissible anyway.
Versus Wick.
Yeah, Starfleet versus Wick. Mm-hmm. John Wick.
Specifically, the fruit of the poisonous tree, which is essentially like any evidence against Una that they acquire illegally is not admissible in court. Yeah. So what she's doing is would not even help anyway.
So now we start the trial. The tribunal actually begins. And I tried to write down all of the three sort of presiding judges.
Yeah.
There's Tlagle, Chiv,
I don't remember the other names, but it's a human, a Vulcan, and I believe that's supposed to be a Tellarite.
Yeah, I think it's a Tellarite.
So
it's got that beard.
Their looks have kind of changed a lot during the last 50 years or so. So it's sort of hard to.
Well, I Googled Tellarite because I was kind of the same thing. Like, is that a Tellarite? And I Googled it. And I'm like, yeah, that's definitely what that is. Yeah. It's not a Bolian.
No, but which makes sense because those three were the founding species of the Federation. Mm-hmm. So makes sense why they'd be like on the council.
Yeah, makes total sense. Yeah. So we kind of kick off this trial. Una pleads not guilty. Batel kind of begins her opening statement where she talks about the eugenics wars, how genetic engineering is really, really bad, and that's why we don't like Illyrians because they're all about that genetic engineering.
Right.
And then Neera takes a stand and she kind of talks about how just because something is law doesn't mean it's just.
Right.
And that because of the way that Starfleet has constructed these laws against Illyrians, that has made Starfleet, it has put Starfleet in this rare situation where they are persecutors and not actually like the Starfleet we all kind of idealize in our heads.
Yeah.
And that's true. That does happen where like people are, antiquated law will still be on the books, and like people who enforce those laws have to enforce them, but maybe they shouldn't.
They're wrong. Yeah. She specifically mentions slavery, so that's probably the best modern example. And this episode is not shy about being very obvious about the parallels between like what they're talking about and like what actually exists in our world today. So this is
the anti-trans movement that's going around.
Just like the laws made to oppress people that Starfleet doesn't deem worth following their cultural norms.
Yeah. And I really like this episode because not only is it tackling that sort of real world thing that we're dealing with right now, but it also kind of talks about stuff that happened in universe. Like we'll get into it right now. So like Admiral April shows up, he's on Stan, and they talk about a bunch of different stuff, but the one I wanted to talk about specifically is Neera brings up the whole, like, the Prime Directive issue, General Order 1, no starship may interfere with alien life or society that's pre-warp. But this is broken all the time.
And she lists every time,
every episode of Star Trek.
Yeah, she lists every time that he specifically violated the Prime Directive to make a point, like, because he essentially says, like, I wouldn't have given Una support if I knew that she was an Illyrian. And she's like,
it's against the law.
Yeah, but you've broken the Prime Directive like all these times. So like, what makes you okay to break this law so many times and still retain your position and not this law, which we all think is bullshit? So
yeah, and it's cool because Admiral April is considered an ally by everyone on the show. For the most part, like, everyone seems to love Admiral April. They talk so highly of him. He's always helping them. He's got their backs typically. And so she goes hard on him. And it's sort of like everyone's really kind of mad at Neera initially. Cause like, why are you, this trial is about Una and helping her out. Why are you dressing down this guy? Are you just trying to be, are you so blinded by your hatred of Starfleet that you're willing to just attack people like this?
Right.
This is wrong.
Yeah.
Which, maybe isn't so wrong, because we find out later on in the episode. Am I right?
Batel during this scene is losing her goddamn mind, though. She's like, objection, objection. Like, she is just not happy at all about the line of questioning.
I love an objection
that Neera is doling out.
Do you think this trial, how different do you think this trial would have worked with, instead of these 3 judges, we had Judge Judy?
Oh, so like, we could have Judge Judy, we could have Judge Jerry.
Judge Jerry.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P. Who was the
Judge
dude?
Mathis?
Oh, Judge Mathis. Yeah, let's get a Judge Mathis on there.
There's a new show on.
What's the woman from People's Court? What's her name? I forget her name. But get her on there. We need the People's Court, represented on this board.
I was just watching Bar Rescue on Pluto TV before I came here, and
I love how you spend your Saturday mornings.
There was a commercial for a show called Hot Bench.
Ooh, what's Hot Bench?
It's exactly what you think it is. It's just another.
Are the defendants sitting on a bench that they increase the temperature of slowly over the course of a half hour?
No, it's not that literal. It's just another Judge Judy, Judge Jerry type.
There was one, I don't remember what it was called, but I went to visit my mom. This was probably sometime last summer, but I went to visit her and she was watching a judge show. But it was the most insane thing I've ever seen, because it's the same exact format, but instead there are 3. It's like this. There were 3 judges on like a half-circled dais that's like really, really high up, and they're all like, you can't rule that against her. Like, they're all like arguing, and I'm like, what is this? This isn't how the law works in America.
Jeez. So was the defendant or whatever like in the middle of them, or was it just they were talking about cases?
You've got the defendant and the plaintiff, like how you normally would.
Yeah.
And but they're just facing like a half circled, desk that's like 10 feet in the air with 3 justices looking down on them.
Wow.
like some sort of sci-fi show.
Yikes. Yeah.
I didn't really pay attention that much, so I don't even know what the case was about. I just saw the visual, like when my mom was talking about how her neighbors suck, but I'm like looking at this visual out of the corner of my eye, like, what the fuck is going on? This is so weird.
I don't think that was Hot Bench, but
Hot Bench.
Yeah.
Let's go on Hot Bench.
Anyway, back to this trial.
I love this episode because we can go on tangents and just say sidebar.
Yeah.
And we're still on the theme, right?
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the team is shocked that she went after April so hard.
Yeah.
April, like, he then, and April kind of makes this great point where he and Pike kind of meet each other in the hallway, and April's kind of mad. And he's like, hey, I had all these incredibly great and kind things to say about Una. I would have talked about how she saved all these lives, how she's one of my favorite officers ever, how she's earned her place in Starfleet, essentially. But I didn't get a chance to say any of that.
Yeah.
Because I was being attacked the whole time. Glad your defendant your legal counsel is seemingly getting in the way of Una's freedom, which I did like that kind of take on it.
And then Pike offers him a drink, and he just stiffs him and walks out. And then Pike takes the drink that he had poured him and just combines it into his and takes a double shot. I just loved that like small detail. Like Pike is not feeling great about this trial right now.
No, he's
this point.
He's sweating it.
Yeah.
He's worried he ain't going to get it.
No.
But we cut to Una and Neera are kind of talking about their strategy. Una's obviously very, very upset. And she kind of accuses Neera, like, all you've ever wanted was a soapbox to kind of stand upon and talk about the injustices that Starfleet places upon Illyrians. You don't really care about me. And Neera says, like, you're not the one who gets left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A hint at the tension between them, though it's not explicitly said at this point.
What did you think this tension was from? Like, in the moment?
I mean, it's pretty obvious that Una sort of shirked her Illyrian culture, whereas Neera embraced it. So, I mean, I thought that's what it was. She was bitter that Una essentially left her best friend to go be in this organization that she like disagreed with. And I could see why. Like the organization itself is like extremely hostile to your existence.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought it was at that point. You?
I was kind of thinking the same way. I was very curious, like what I was trying to think of, like what the inciting incident would have been. Like, was it just her going to Starfleet or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll find out a little bit later. But back into the courtroom, we've got more witnesses, Phil. We've got La'an. We got Spock. We got Mbenga.
Yeah.
What did you think about their testimony?
So one thing that stood out to me, like La'an Noonien-Singh finally confirms that she has a direct bloodline to Khan, which was kind of a big reveal. Like, I mean, we all assumed it because her last name is
Noonien-Singh.
Yeah. But it had never been like expressly said yet.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal.
I definitely did the Leonardo DiCaprio, like, ooh, the like point at the screen, like, they said the name. Yeah, right. They said Khan.
Right. And then another thing that I liked was Spock references. And I don't know if you watched these or not, but this was a series called Short Treks. I think they're on Paramount Plus still.
I have not seen these.
But there's a short trek about the moment that Una and Spock meet for the first time.
Oh, really?
And they have a musical number in a turbolift. And he directly makes a reference to that meeting.
Oh, man.
So if you're like, what was that whole thing about? I forget, like Gilbert and
Sullivan.
Yeah. Like if you were confused about that part, there is actually
are they singing like Modern Major General? Is that the song they're singing?
I believe so, yeah. Like I forget the actual song, but there is a short treks about that moment, and it's like 7 minutes long. So it's
That's
a real
on
quick
Paramount
watch.
Plus?
Yeah.
I'm going to watch that. That sounds amazing.
Not all short treks are created equal, though. I will warn you. Some are really good and some are really bad. But that one's good.
Okay. So. Yeah, I don't know the words to that Modern Major General song. I only know the words from the version that appears in Mass Effect, the one that Morton Solis sings.
Yeah.
I would love to see Spock sing anything.
Right.
In a turbo lift even.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool that they bring something that
I really liked that part because I didn't think that specific short trek would ever get referenced again, but it was just real quick, real.
Do they reference short treks ever? Like, is this the first time they've ever like referenced it in a mainline series?
It's a good question.
To your knowledge?
That is a really good question. I don't know if there are other if there are other short treks that have a direct reference in other series. I know they did one that related to Picard season 1. That was actually pretty good. And what's the other one? There was a Tribble one too. That was good with H. John Benjamin. He's the main guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
is he doing like the Bob's Burgers voice?
Yeah, that's just his voice.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, I'm a Tribble.
Yeah. No, that's you're spot on.
I'm just gonna go over here.
Yeah.
Tita.
So go watch that one. The other thing I liked about this specific scene is they do like a really great talking head montage where they just like cycle through all of the like glowing reviews that the crew has for Una.
I got a little teary-eyed when Mbenga talks about how her discreetness and empathy is so great.
It was just so nice.
They had that great moment last season where she was kind of keeping the secret of his daughter being held in the pattern buffer the whole season.
Yeah. It's just, they have nothing but glowing things to say. They even go so far as to say, like, we are alive because of her. And many more people are also alive because of her. So
La'an specifically says, like, I've saved a bunch of people. Una has saved my life. If she didn't save my life and bring me into, she literally sponsored La'an into Starfleet. And if she hadn't done that, all these people would be dead.
Yeah. So they have nothing but good things to say about her.
And then Spock is, you know, he's Vulcan. He's always coming in hot with that logic. I love the logic that he spouts where it's like, it's illogical for Starfleet to punish itself.
Yeah.
Because her loss would be so destructive to the organization. She's a mentor. She's a leader about leadership. She's a friend. She's family. Like, and that from a Vulcan point of view, like that is like, yeah, it is illogical for Starfleet to punish itself.
When Spock gives you a glowing review, that's got to feel good because Spock's not an emotional person in any outward terms. So for him to be so complimentary is such a huge deal, specifically to the crew that he works with, because he spends so much time with them. So he has all this time to see their flaws, and the fact that he can be so outwardly complimentary of her is just a huge deal.
Yeah. You know who Spock also loves to give glowing reviews of? The patrons who keep this show afloat.
Nice.
These are the patrons at a $25 above tier. They are the super patrons. They are keeping the lights on here, as well as all the other patrons who do it at any level. But we get to shout them out as part of their tier. And if you would like to become a member of Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/streamingthings and join these incredible people who are our patron producers for the month of June. They are Chester Copperpot, Stanton Valentino, Svento7, Pills, baby, Jay Scramo, A.K. Ashley Ray, Alan Tomlinson, Wendy O'Laughlin, Jason Hawkins, Trey Barrera, Conrad, David Malfara, Kaylee Sampson, Rabbit Dog and a Barbie Car, Jose Ruben Cruz Rodriguez, Alexis Adler, Thomas Alexander, Emmy, Joe Velez, Valerie, Aaron Layton, John Collins, Amanda King, Son, Loving, Mortal, Andrew Gray, Jadinklage Morgoon, I don't know why I always say his name like in a question mark. Morgoon? I don't know why I do that. Jen Robinson, Kate, Chloe Richardson, Kalisha Reeves, Kiki Newton, Kevin Strother, a lot of K's all at once, Jeanette Murphy, Casey McCain, and Enza.
What's up, Enza?
What's up, girl? How's Belgium? Those people are great.
Nice segue.
Yeah, I think I had a really killer segue into it.
Yeah.
A really poor one out of it.
You know what? You didn't have to have a segue out of it because it was so good going in.
Oh,
so
tell me more about my love life. La'an gets to meet up with Neera. She gives Neera the Code of Justice. That's the aforementioned giant
book.
The tome.
It's just so strange to see like a physical book in Star Trek. So it stands out.
I would have loved it if she like blew dust off of it and everything.
But this is an honestly touching moment between the two of them. Like, this is the first time we've seen Neera be anything but like cold and aggressive. Like professional, but cold.
Yeah, she's like on it.
Yeah, but she sort of lets down her facade a little bit with La'an because she recognizes that La'an feels a lingering guilt about like her lineage being related to Khan and all the eugenic war bullshit that goes along with that. And she has this really good line that I like a lot, and I'll paraphrase it. She said, "It was drilled into you. You were born with a capacity for actions good or ill, just like the rest of us." Essentially, she's saying like, just because you share a bloodline with some really bad people doesn't mean that you're locked into being a bad person too. And she's essentially making the case for Illyrians, where she's like, just because we are genetically modified doesn't mean that we have to bear the burden of all that happened during the eugenics wars.
Right. I agree. And she also kind of talks about Lon has sort of a moment where she kind of reveals she's worried that they got Una because of her.
Yeah.
Because last season, Una told her about her Illyrian heritage, and I guess she made a personal log where she was kind of upset about it. And like she's writing it to herself. It's a personal log. It's not meant for anybody else, but she's worried that somehow that got out, and that is what caused them to be able to come into the Enterprise and take Una away. Her friend, her mentor.
Because in that episode, she was mad that she was lied to. Mm-hmm. It's not that she was mad that she was genetically modified. She was mad that she kept a secret that enormous from her friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she felt a little betrayed by that. But now she's like worried, like, oh no, I ruined my friend's life.
Right.
Because I was just venting in my personal log. And luckily for her, Neera, to your point, Neera kind of, hey, it couldn't possibly have been you. Because that was like 4 months ago. Yeah. And like you said, it takes 6 months to get those records unsealed. So it couldn't possibly have been you who got Una locked up.
Which eases La'an's guilt.
Mm-hmm. Poor La'an.
Yeah.
So back to the trial.
Yeah.
Guess what's happening, Phil?
What's
the
that?
very thing that Neera didn't want to happen, but now does. Una takes the stand.
Right.
On hot bench.
Right. Hot bench.
Hot bench. So she gets asked this question, hey, why did you want to join Starfleet? And she mentions, she kind of recounts the original slogan for Starfleet, which is ad Astra per Aspera.
Yeah.
My notes rewrote that the same word twice. It's weird. And I kind of geeked out because as soon as she said that, I'm like, that's an Enterprise thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I looked at it, I'm like, oh yeah, that is. Yeah. Because Enterprise is about beginning Starfleet. And so and I think that's also the state motto for Kansas randomly.
Really?
Or it has something to do with Kansas, I think.
Really?
I might have to, maybe later on I can check that up, but I think it has something to do with Kansas.
The Latin translates to the stars through the stars through hardships, essentially meaning achieving great heights or reaching for the stars despite the challenges and difficulties encountered along the way.
Mm-hmm. So ad Astra per Aspera is actually Kansas's official state motto and appears on the state seal.
That's really dope.
Isn't that like Kansas?
Yeah.
Okay. Right on.
Kansas, the home of space flight.
Yeah. They probably are more interested in the striving through difficulty type thing, but it is kind of strange that ad Astra appears anywhere in regards to Kansas.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, she was talking about she saw this federation, this crew of people from all different walks of life, planets, creeds, coming together as a team and working together. And she found that very inspirational. And that's why she wanted to join Starfleet.
She also mentions this I thought was a really interesting part. She mentions a year before she was born, the Illyrians lived in a Federation colony on the Volterra Nebula or in the Volterra Nebula, whatever the planet they're on right now. And they were granted provisional membership to the Federation so long as they renounced their genetic modification. Mm-hmm. So they couldn't practice their cultural traditions. They had to essentially abandon who they were in order to be in the Federation. Yeah. And she said that some of them did, and then some of them did not, and they kept it quiet. And they kept it quiet. Mm-hmm. Her family were among the folks who still practiced Illyrian customs and genetic modification, but kept it quiet.
Yeah, there was this interesting sort of kind of mention where her parents were passing.
Yeah.
Because I guess some Illyrians, their modification, there was a very specific call out where they exhaled green or something.
Yeah.
Something with the color green where you could visibly see oh, that person's probably modified.
Right.
And again, that's another thing, persecuted groups can be in this quote unquote passing. Yeah. What do you call that? They're passing in terms of what is considered the norm or wanted by the larger governmental society. Yeah. And so they're able to kind of hide what they are, whereas other people don't have that benefit. And, it kind of talks about how there could be these two different groups two different members of the same group not having equal treatment because just what you're seeing with your eyes. And that in and of itself is kind of evidence of how stupid this is.
Yeah, right. And then she actually, this is the moment where we learn the nature of the tension between Neera and Una too. Mm-hmm. She mentions that Ivan Katul, who was her best friend's cousin, so now we've learned that her best friend was a Neera, and she had a cousin named Ivan.
Yep.
He was found out for being augmented and living in this colony. So essentially what happened was the hysteria and violence that the colony experienced in relation to people being discovered to be augments escalated to a point where it got...
It's dangerous.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
It's very dangerous. And I mean, it's a lot of the shit that's like, look at all the anti-trans hysteria that's going around in this country right now. Like some of that's like kind of boiling over into very violent acts towards persecuted peoples.
Sure.
And it's awful. But yeah, these attacks start. Her family are trying to, they're passing. They can kind of hide it. Eventually, this leads to the city they live in being separated into two cities. There's the Illyrian city and the non-Illyrian city. Una's family, because they can pass and able to blend in, they go to live in the non-Illyrian part of the city and leave everyone else behind.
Which is why Neera specifically resents her. Yes. Because Una left her behind.
Mm-hmm. And they also mentioned that she had, at one point, I think when the attack starts, there was some sort of accident where she broke her leg. This was the scene in the beginning.
Right.
And it was just a simple fix. Like with modern technology, she could have gone to the doctor's office. They could have just like probably sprayed some hypo spray in her neck and she'd be all fine.
Yeah.
But because they're worried about going to the doctor and they're able to find out that she's Illyrian, they don't go, and she almost dies due to complications to this very easy to fix thing.
Right.
And that's horrifying. That's awful.
Yeah, and she reveals that she turned herself into Starfleet. She was the one who outed herself.
Yes.
In this moment. So we know it wasn't Spock, it wasn't La'an, it wasn't Pike. Mm-hmm. It was her.
Yeah.
And she does this. She has this speech at this moment where she describes how much Starfleet means to her. And she describes how like the diversity was so attractive to her, and she dreamed of being in Starfleet so much that she essentially the optimism and the willingness to aid and explore and just be part of that whole organization was so...
To go boldly.
Yeah, like no she wanted to be in
before.
that. So she's like, I have to lie about who I am to get through to achieve my dream. And ultimately she turned herself in because she was tired of living that lie.
Yeah.
And
I love her speech because the thing she talks about Starfleet is, I think, a big reason why people love Star Trek. Like people love the idea of it being explorers and working amongst diverse peoples and working in this idealized version of what society can be. We're not there yet, but it's something we strive to be. And her kind of saying that is like, yeah, if you watch Star Trek, if you like Star Trek, what she's saying probably hits home to you. Like, yeah, I would do that too. Like, I would want to be a part of that as well.
Put a pin in this because we're going to come back to that.
Put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, put a pin in that.
And then Pasalk is not about this emotional upheaval at all. He stands up and he
I hate emotion.
He goes straight for the weak spot. He goes after Pike and essentially says like, Pike knew about this and he's complicit with the cover up.
When did you tell Pike about this? And she says 4 months before her arrest.
Yeah. And he also makes a comment that like throws shade at Batel in this moment too. Like he's like, I forget what he says specifically, but he's like a point my co-counsel failed to bring up, and he mentions the Pike thing. So like no one in this room likes Pasalk at this point. Not Batel.
No.
Not the defense. Probably not even the judges.
Certainly not Spock.
No, Spock hates him.
He's in the hallway having more outbursts.
Yeah.
Guys, I apologize for the YouTube viewers for having to have watched that.
Yeah. Sorry for that outburst.
We at Streaming Things do not condone the outburst Phil just had just now. But yeah, like Pasak says something like, the law is about facts and logic, and Una, he says, is toxic in her action as well as her inaction. Like, how many people's careers are you going to destroy to just be in Starfleet?
Yeah.
Because in his mind, he's like, I got her dead to rights. Once I'm done with you, I'm going after Captain Pike. I'm going after all those people that said nice things about you. I'm going to fire Batel, and then I'm going to beat up Spock.
And since she's under oath and in the chair, he essentially asks her just straight up, like, how long did Pike know?
Yeah.
And there's a cut to the hand device, which was never expressly explained, but you don't need it to be explained because it's just one quick shot of a hand on this like glowing platform that's on the armrest of the chair. And you get it. Like, you instantly get what it's supposed to be. It's this lie detector tech.
Yeah, because they're also kind of hammering home, like, you are under oath. Yeah. Do not lie.
And Una has to be truthful about the fact that Pike did know.
Yeah, and Pike's at their viewing quarters on the Enterprise. Like,
yeah, he's watching it live. Exactly like that. Yeah.
So now it's Neera's turn.
Yeah.
She's like, rebuttal.
Yeah.
Counterpoint. Leading the witness. No. So she gives Batel the code of justice that La'an had given her earlier, and she's like, "Hey, could you read off section 8154, please, and thank you. The book is too heavy. I only read off of pads.
Yeah.
Can you read this for me, please?" And essentially, what the argument that she makes is via this code is that Una should be given amnesty. Or not amnesty. I'm sorry.
Any
asylum.
Persons seeking asylum within Starfleet, essentially, like, it's up to Starfleet to judge whether or not it's appropriate. But if they meet all these conditions and want to seek asylum within Starfleet, like, you are legally allowed to give them asylum within the organization.
Yeah, and so essentially what has happened is, without anybody knowing it, Neera had kind of walked Una through telling her story, and via her story being told, is checking off every single box it takes to not only be offered amnesty, but also be granted it via Captain Pike.
Yeah.
And it's so cool because she's going through, like, she thought she needed to be safe. She was in danger when she was a kid. She turned herself in. She wanted her crew to know who she was. She talks about how the law can be bent by even the greatest of Starfleet captains. Captain Pike essentially granted her the amnesty without the asylum, without knowing exactly that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
And I love this whole thing because the speech is so good. It's one of those moments where you're just like, yeah, tell him. And like, it cuts over to Batel, and Batel's like, yeah, I'm also in. Fuck you, Pasak. I heard what you said about me just now.
Yeah, the crazy thing about this whole case is they keep cutting back to Batel, and like, you can tell, like, she doesn't believe in what she's trying to fight for during this case. Like, she wants to do her job well, but she doesn't want to win. Like she wants Una to be back on the ship. At least that's what I assumed based on her.
I agree as well. She's on the side of Una, but she's also one of those people that's like, I have to work through the law. Right. The law says I have to do this.
Yeah.
And she's just so happy that Neera was able to kind of pull this law out and be like, oh no, you guys do have to work within the law. Here is the law.
Yeah.
Bam. Confirm her status of asylum to absolve both her and Captain Pike.
She uses the logic argument that Pasalk made against him And not only does she prove that Una was well within her rights to seek asylum within Starfleet, but she also absolves Pike at the same time. So Pasalk's attack on Pike now means nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And this whole time, like, it reveals that even though she was going hard on April in the beginning, like, that was a pointed tact to make this point that, like, even the greatest Starfleet captains have to kind of bend the law. This is a perfect situation where we are working within the law and we have to do this. And I love what she says about, like, let me see, a law is not a mirror to society. It's an ideal. It's there to remind us how to be our better selves. And she asks the judges, like, you know, Una believed in the ideals of Starfleet. Find those ideals within yourself and give her this asylum. And it's fucking beautiful because that's something that so many people who are, like, really hard nosed into, like, law and order, right? Like, they're like, you have to follow the law. It's like, sure, yes, but that is a lot of my favorite speakers in the matter, like, talk about how this is an ideal. We're not perfect yet, but these are here to remind us on how to get where we need to go, so we can do what we need to do to go where we need to be. And I just love the speech so much.
It's a great speech.
So much,
and it's a great way to end the case too, because essentially the judges deliberate. And then they say, like, she's not guilty. So not only is it a good, like, impassioned speech, but, like, it wins it. She's off the hook.
Yeah, it is a big win, but it's also, like, this nuanced sort of win. We're like, yeah, this won for this incredibly specific situation. It doesn't necessarily help Illyrians at large, but, like Neera says, it's a start.
Right.
And that's don't get in the way of good.
Right. Put pin number 2 in that one.
Put a pen on that.
Yeah. Neera and Una make peace after this. And I love this. So she beams out. Neera beams out.
Energize. You can't talk while it's going.
No, I can't.
Yeah,
no.
you'll, like, fuck up your jaw.
Respect it.
Yeah, respect the noise.
And then Pike gives her this just amazing hug, because he lingers on the hug just a little bit, and you can tell, like, there's, like, fear in his eyes, but there's also, like, gratitude and there's relief. Like, his face says a ton. Like, Anson Mount acts the shit out of this, like, 2-second hug.
Yeah. You could tell in that moment that he wasn't really confident that he was going to be able to.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't confident they were going to win.
Yeah.
And that it would have been his fault.
And he's relieved it's done. He's relieved that she's back on the ship as his right hand. And then he gives her the hug. Then he, like, backs off and, like, gives her, like, a bop on the arm. Like, yeah.
Bop.
Good job.
God, I love him.
And then, like,
I really liked, because Una and Neera have that moment, like, you know, thank you for saving my life. You know, it was a technicality to start. But when Neera goes back to the teleporter, like, Una, like, does not let go of her hand for the longest time. It's this really
the best
small moment where it's like, I don't really want to let you go right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's her kind of finally sort of accepting who she is.
Yeah.
And that she shouldn't be hiding who she is. And it's wonderful.
And
Neera also has this great thing, like, hey, I'm looking at a starship crew that proudly serves under an Illyrian commander.
Yeah.
And that's a start. And it's like, fuck yeah, it is. Fuck yeah.
And then there's the perfect way to end this scene and this episode is just, like, a long shot on Una's face as the, like, classic Star Trek theme plays in horns. Like, that iconic, those, like, iconic notes in horns, and then it just cuts to black. It's so good.
Yeah.
The episode's done. Una's saved. The Enterprise still has their XO in place, and we're moving on from this plot point.
We're back, baby. We're going to explore strange new worlds, seek out new life, and go and boldly go where no one has gone
once
before.
again boldly go.
Yeah. I would like the ship to go.
Yes. Boldly. So, did you enjoy this episode?
Dude, I love this episode.
Yeah.
I love this episode so much. I you know, if you're listening, you probably can know I, like, a gush about this. I think They do such a great job in this episode in talking about a lot of real life issues. They do it in a way that's very Star Trek. I mean, Star Trek is so good when they want to do courtroom dramas. Like I feel like every iteration of Trek has at least one courtroom drama episode, and it's always a banger.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
At least that I've seen.
Yeah. If it's not like explicitly a courtroom drama, like there are other episodes that deal with like sticky laws and such.
Yeah, and they're walking around like, this is why Data has a soul.
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah,
and they're always a banger. And this season so far has been so bold because I feel like the way they've, we talked about it last week's episode, doesn't even have Captain Pike. It was a fun little romp. This episode is very courtroom drama. There's no like, let's go have an adventure. It's just, we're helping our friend out.
Yeah.
And I love that about this. The Star Trek can be so much more than just like, let's fight this alien. Oh no, the Borg. Oh no, whatever. It can be stories like this where it's just people trying to make society better. And I think that's beautiful and great.
They've specifically said that this season of this show is going to play more within like the different genre of film that is out there. So I'm really excited to see how they've nailed both of these so far. And I don't know what episode 3 is going to be yet. So I love that. I love that we don't know where it's going next. So I'm pumped for it.
The only thing I know about the future is there's an episode where we get Boims.
So I think they said that's Mariner. Episode 7. So we have to wait. But
I'm so excited to see Boimler and Mariner.
Yeah. What was your favorite moment?
Oh, my favorite moment, the captain's log.
Yeah.
As you were, maybe is that what we're sticking with? Maybe.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Captain's log.
Sure.
So I think my captain's log of this episode is definitely Neera's speech, right? That big climactic moment where she kind of reveals what her whole case has been about. It's like, oh, she's had this figured out from the beginning. She talks about the Starfleet ideals. She throws it back in Pasok's face, and she ultimately wins the case thanks to a tome, like it's just an old ass dusty book. And I found myself, even though I was sitting on my couch when I watched this episode, I found myself wanting to like stand up and like, yes, yeah, get it, Queen, get it.
Right.
That's my captain's log. What about you?
So it is a speech, but it's a different speech. Una's speech about why she wanted to join Starfleet and like what appealed to her about what about Starfleet appealed to her is my favorite moment and you hit it like nail on the head, which is why I said to put a pin in that. Because everything you said about how like that's why Star Trek fans like Star Trek, that's exactly what appealed to me. The first time I watched it, I was like, I love the notion of this like not a utopian future, but like the main problems we have today right now have all been solved. And yes, there are new problems to face, but we've solved like hunger and we've solved
most medical issues.
Medical issues. Yeah. And we've gotten off of Earth and like
we don't have money anymore.
Joined the ranks of like other worlds. Like there is a federation of like diversity. Like I love that. Like
and you can do the important things like exploring and learning new things and becoming more like you're learning more things and becoming better always.
Knowledge is the main driver for the people in that future. It's not about like, oh, I got to make money to buy food. Like it's like, no, I got to like learn new things because
how do I help society?
Yeah. Like I want to help people with the things that I learned. And there's an organization there to help me do that. And largely too, like Starfleet is the bad guy. Like the concept of Starfleet is the bad guy in this episode. And it's hit pretty hard, like up to that point. But then when she lays out like why it appealed to her, like I'm not a person who like cries at things, but it really did, like it hit me hard when she said that because it was so perfect. And I just think like that moment stands out to me the most of the episode, because she just so perfectly put into words why Starfleet appeals to me too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's a great pick.
Yeah,
that's a great pick, and I love it. I mean, that's the way. Just that promise of being better is something we all strive for, and I think a lot of people get too hung up on the details of what's written in the Constitution. Like that's not how it should be. That's just a baseline of what we could be in the future. Like we always strive to be better. Who is your acting captain of this week?
So Neera Khatul is my favorite character in this episode for obvious reasons. She's the perfect person to represent Una. She wins the case. She makes a compelling argument that essentially puts Pasalk's whole logic to rest. She absolves Pike in the process. And like the combined history of her and Una and the like struggles that Illyrians have faced, like she herself has become this amazing attorney and essentially like scored a major win for her whole people by winning this case too. Like she absolutely rocked this episode. She's my acting captain.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you. The actress that plays her name is Yetide Badaki. She's incredible in this. Like, it's been a long time since like a seemingly one-off character on Star Trek kind of pops in and is that strong. And I immediately like, yes, say it, speak truth to power. Yes, please. I loved it. I'm not familiar with Yetide Badaki before. This is the first thing I can think of that I've seen with her in it that I'm aware of, and she crushed it. So that's someone I'm going to be looking out for in the future in everything I watch, because she was wonderful. But Phil,
what one real quick thing on pin 2 though?
You had a second pin. What's the second pin?
So you said essentially like this is not a law changing win, but we're going to make an exception for this case. And there's and I know you haven't watched Deep Space Nine, but
I have not.
Deep Space Nine takes place essentially 100 years beyond the events of Strange New Worlds. And there's the Doctor, Julian Bashir, on that is genetically enhanced, and you don't learn that until like season 5.
The Doctor from Voyager.
No.
So I'm like, he's in DS9 too?
No. He's genetically altered because his father was a geneticist who recognized that he was having difficulties at a young age. And essentially, like, Starfleet hasn't changed their tune on this in 100 more years too, which is unfortunate, because while he's absolved and like left alone, his dad essentially chooses to go to jail for his actions. So unfortunately, this win is not something that sticks in Starfleet, and for at least 100 more years, they're not real flexible on this whole thing. So bummer.
Starfleet, be better.
Yeah,
be better. But let's open up the comms for some other questions from other Starfleet captains. How about we do that? Let's rush through a couple of these. The first one comes in from Casey on the Discord. They write, "What is your favorite episode of season 1 and why?"
Ooh, I think I answered this the first episode. I think the Captain Angel one really stood out to me. A lot, just because I liked how Arch Jesse James Keitel played that part, and it was just fun being on the like Orion ship, and that was just like a fun romp of an episode. But I honestly think it is episode 1, because I remember when that aired, I was so jazzed. It got me excited. I think I like immediately texted you to like, you have to watch this show. It's so fun. So I think that season 1, episode 1 was my favorite, just because it was so it got me it hooked me from the very start.
So. That's a good one.
What about you?
I think I went with Spock Amok.
Yeah.
I really like that episode for some reason.
Yeah.
I like a good Freaky Friday story, and it's really funny, and it reveals a lot about the characters. And that's the episode where like, oh, they're taking Spock in a different direction. Which is good.
And also you love the subplot of Spock and Chapel, and that was a big one.
I want them to be together. The next the next question they write is, this season seems to focus on one or two central characters each episode. Which character-centric episode are you looking forward to most?
Ortegas is my favorite person on the bridge. That's not Pike.
She's awesome.
Yeah. I love her. And the last two episodes have been like, whenever she's on screen, she just eats it up.
Yeah, she steals it every time.
I want more of her. She rules.
I gotta say, just based off how the season has played out so far, I really, really want that Pike episode because I miss a Captain Pike focus episode. I feel like we haven't gotten that in some time.
Well, we've only seen 2 of 10 so far, so it's still pretty early days to make.
But he can get it.
That's true.
Casey also writes #team to Pring. So there's some Pringles out there.
I am on team to Pring as well.
That's what I'm calling to Pring fans.
Yeah.
To Pringles.
Once you Spock, the fun don't stop.
Nah, Spock-a-mock. Enza writes in, okay, here it goes. Who is your favorite villain? Someone we've already met? Or maybe like a villainous race that you would like to see on the show appear again?
Oh, that's such a good question.
In terms of like a villainous race, the quote unquote, like these are the bad guy villain races of Star Trek. I just want more Ferengi.
Dude, I'm right there with you.
I want Ferengi so much.
And I know that is such a grown word, the answer, but I like Ferengi. I think they are such a good foil to like the sterling Starfleet look. They're just,
and with this specific show, this specific crew, it'll be so entertaining to see them interact with the Ferengi.
Yeah, I don't think I have to brush up on it, but I don't think they even encounter the Ferengi until TNG though.
Oh, that's true. That would be like it would break canon if they were.
Yeah. So we're probably not going to get that, but.
That's a bummer. Bummer. And then last up, Phil. We got an email.
Uh-oh.
Okay. This is kind of a big one.
Oh, jeez.
This is a little long.
Oh, no.
But I feel like I got to read it.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Is this going to make me sad?
No, it's not.
Okay.
All right. They write, hello, Streaming Things Pod. I am a longtime listener, first-time writer. Unfortunately, I have been forced to write in today because of some egregious statements made in season 2, episode 1, Star Trek Strange New Worlds episode.
Good. I can't. I love that. I love that we've reached this level already.
The discussion I am referring to begins at time code 5322.
I love this. I love it.
Mbenga and Nurse Chapel are in quite the pickle, and Steve and Phil are taking issue with the green vials. They call this juicing, roiding. Phil says he feels that this is just Deus Ex Machina to get them to the next scene. Yeah. Steve said he didn't care for the doctors beating people up. Now, if the issue is with the fight choreography and the film technique, I have no comment on this. I have no experience or expertise. That is not what I take issue with. The issue I take is that both Phil and Steve state that they don't want their doctors to juice up, and that it's weird to add. It's a weird thing to add to Star Trek, and that it comes out of nowhere. And then Phil states, Una got court-martialed for being genetically modified. And there you have the two doctors juicing to get through an army of Klingons. Insightful, Phil. Very insightful. The egregious statement is made by Steve, who agrees with Phil. Why is this egregious, one might ask? I am more than happy to explain. This is a bit of a trek.
I love this.
But I love this entire thing. That's why I'm reading it. And I think you'll understand even more why I love this here in a second.
Okay. All right.
First, I'm a huge fan of the show. Second, I am Steve's girlfriend. Thirdly, I have a sad truth to share. I did not have an interest in the show. The first time I was introduced to it, I was a little too tired and a little too tipsy. So I was so distracted by the fact that I had too much rum and that Captain Pike looks like the perfect amalgamation of Timothy Oliphant and Peter Gallagher. What I couldn't focus on, what was happening. Oh yeah, she was too caught up in pronouncing how to pronounce Peter Gallagher's last name. Literally, we were watching it. She's like, Gallagher, 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 Gallagher. I'm like, you watch a fucking show. Okay, let me see. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I restarted the show out of the love of my partner and dear friend. I became enamored with the show. I consumed every Strange New Worlds episode over just a few days, and this is why I must out Steve of his hypocrisy. He didn't appreciate the doctor's, one is a nurse, juicing up, and it seemed out of place in Star Trek when the very first episode of Strange New Worlds Season 1 that he introduced me to shows the very shipped Nurse Chapel proclaiming, I'm going to mess with your genome. And what I like to call polyjuice potioning the crew to make them blend in with the locals on planet Kylie 279. I love that she knows that episode and wrote that. I'm so proud of her. Now, when I saw episode 3, Ghosts of Illyria, you can imagine my thoughts when they mentioned that it was illegal to genetically modify the body. I immediately texted Steve, and I thought that it was a little funny that everyone was really shy about genetically modifying when Chapel polyjuice potioned them in the first episode. Steve replied, cosmetic modifications? No worries. No, I said, these are still genetic modifications. He said it was like NASCAR. You can paint the car what you want, but you can't change the engine. Gasp! Messing with your genome, reduced to changing your paint. And now here we are on season 2, episode 1. How much we have forgotten. Well, how the turntables have turntabled. So it's okay for Nurse Chapel to play with their genetics in episode 1, but it's not okay in season 2, episode 1. Suddenly it's out of place in Star Trek, and Una is being court-martialed for genetic modification, but they are doing the same thing with green juice. Hypocrisy.
You know, she brings up a good point, but I will say 2 things. Okay. These are temporary modifications because, as you saw in that episode, that first episode, Spock's juice runs out. Mid-mission. So it's not meant to change you permanently, as we saw with this last episode as well. Like the effects do wear off within a certain amount of time, whereas the genetic modifications that Starfleet seemingly has an issue with are like permanent modifications that will last your whole life. That's I think the technical line that you can draw between the two. Now, the other thing is, I don't fully believe that M'Benga and Chapel believe that genetic modification is a bad thing to begin with. Mm-hmm. So
that's more of a Starfleet writ large.
That's a archaic Starfleet law. I don't think they believe that is something that they support themselves. I don't think anybody on that ship believes that that's a good law.
Yeah.
So I would say that they probably take a lot less issue with these temporary changes to finish a mission, which we've seen twice. So.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely.
Also, can I just say,
yes,
I love that the show has gotten her to watch this show.
Yes,
because she texted my wife and I a few days back, and she knows my wife has absolutely no interest in Star Trek at all.
She is like, oh, what are you guys talking about? Oh, Star Trek.
Yeah,
you can't see someone leave a room quicker.
No. So she texted us and she said like, hey, this is actually a really good show. You should watch it. I liked it. And my wife's like, oh, really? Like, oh, that's so great. Like, I've literally been trying to tell my wife that this show is good for like 2 years, and she will not listen to me at all. And she sends one text, and she's like, she's not on board, but she's gotten closer to the boarding process. Yeah. So I feel like given a little bit more time.
So what you're saying is Erica should push her wife some more to watch Star Trek, and we can get her over that hump.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's our New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
It began with watching all of Trek. Now it ends with getting your wife to watch Trek. An uphill battle for sure.
To boldly convince my wife that this is not a bad show.
To boldly go where no one has gone before. Well, thank you all, everybody, for participating and watching the show. And thank you, Phil, for joining us.
Thank you.
Sorry again, it was a little bit late, but I'm sure you guys understand. If you would like to be in contact with the show, you can always do it. Follow our social medias. We're on Twitter at streamingthingspod. We're on Instagram at streamingthingspodofficial. You can go to our website. We have a website now, Phil. Mm-hmm. It's great. It's streamingthingspod.com.
I've been there.
We're going to have some, we're always growing that website, so stay tuned to that. We might start doing some blog stuff, whatever. You can also become a patron of the show. Go to patreon.com/streamingthings to join at a variety of tiers. And you can always email us, just like Erica did, to put me on blast on my own show at we are streamingthingspod@gmail.com. So please write in. I always love hearing from you guys. We've gotten a ton of emails over the last couple weeks in regards to Trek, Lost, everything in between, people who really want us to watch The Icon. We love all of it. Please continue to interact with the show. But with that concludes this journey of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Thank you, Phil, for always being a member of this journey with me.
Thank you.
My name is Steve.
I'm Phil.
Happy streaming.